Hello and welcome to a special presentation of In the Money Media. I'm Mikee P. Mike Probosi in for the Japanese contenders for the 2025 Kentucky Derby. This is presented, the show, by twinspires.com and their tournaments, and we thank them for their sponsorship. We have an outstanding roundtable panel in, and these are all very, very much into the JRA circuit and these Japanese contenders. So we're going to welcome them individually. Alex Henry is here. She's usually with me for the JRA pods on the weekends. Alex, I know you've done some of the Monster Pods with Pete. We definitely always welcome your opinion, especially for these horses.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And it's an honor to be amongst a field of amazing other analysts here too. So thank you for the opportunity.
And we have Klaus Ebner, of course, the head of Woodbine Entertainment up in WAG that handles a lot of JRA segments for us. Also, Klaus, welcome in. I'm glad you could join us. I know it was a little tight getting here.
All good, Mike. We're here. Let's get it done.
And joining us from the Far East, Toshi Onikubo, he has joined us for several of these podcasts, an expert in JRA racing. Toshi, always good to have your opinion on these shows.
Thanks for having me, and then great to be on this show with you guys. And yeah, particularly Japan having horses for Kentucky Derby. This is fourth year consecutively. I mean, of course, we had a lot more before, but this is a thing quite few Japanese horses are aiming for now as an normal option for the 3 years old campaign.
Yes, absolutely, and certainly just missed last year with Forever Young in that Kentucky Derby, and unfortunate nose loss after a troubled trip. Last but not least, Alan Carasso in from TDN, Pedigree expert and expert of all things JRA also. Welcome, Alan.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Well, let's jump in. We have a couple contenders this year for the Kentucky Derby that have shipped over. Admire Daytona is one of the contenders, and the other is Luxor Cafe. So those are our two horses that are pointing for the Derby this year. Alex, I know we're going to start with you because you did the Monster Pod for Admire Daytona with Pete for the Monster Pods for the Derby. This one, I would think, is probably the longer priced of the two.
Yeah, Mike, honestly, he's going to be double digits for sure. He's improved a lot, 3-year-old. I'm sure we'll talk more in depth, but as a 3-year-old, he really is coming to his own. Took the winter off after having some unsuccessful maiden attempts, but for one of those, he had a huge excuse, still ran huge to Luxor Cafe to lose by a nose. He really shouldn't have lost that race. I wish it was a dead heat. Both horses deserved to win and still broke the Japanese record for 1,600 meters on dirt, both of them, because they got the exact same time. So anyway, nice horse. I do have some pedigree questions as well with him, but definitely want to hear from the team what their thoughts are.
We can definitely jump into that. Toshi, I would say the more preferred of the runners in here is Luxor Cafe. Certainly with 4 straight wins, his last few races, very impressive. Some people comparing him to Forever Young, who came into this race last year with a gaudy record. Give us a little bit of your thoughts on this one.
I mean, he looks like a special horse in Japan anyway. I mean, his early career when he debuted and in the second race, he looked a little bit green and probably still green as well, but improving a lot as well. And, I think he got the page, he got performance and form, and trained by one of the best trainers in Japan, proven at the world stages, and as well as João Moreira board. I mean, he ticks so many boxes for sure.
Absolutely, and certainly is I would think going to take plenty of money in the race. Klaus, I'd like to talk to you about this road now to the Derby with the Japanese horses and the JRA circuit. And Toshi mentioned that a lot of these horses now are pointing to this Derby with their 3-year-olds. So can you talk about the road to the Derby with some of these races, the points that are given? I guess these horses, they sort of have to beat everybody else to be able to qualify. It's not the same points as we have over here necessarily, but they're all competing to try to get a spot in the gate.
Yeah, certainly. And as Toshi and Alex mentioned, it's really a case now of this is a really a prime, race where the horses that are dirt horses in Japan don't have. Again, yes, there is now the dirt Triple Crown in Japan, which is something if you are an owner, I know there are a few good horses that just can't go left-handed that can only go right-handed in Japan, and they're aiming to stay in Japan. But for the most part, you have horses in Japan that are dirt horses, and they're aiming for the Derby now. So it's not an afterthought. It's one of those things where it's on the top of the radar. And sure, I think some of the better ones may decide to go to the Saudi and Dubai route, but certainly this is now a proven path, as we want to call it that, of horses that are competitive and have run half decent now. So we've had some Teo Password, we've had a few others that have used this format to get to the Derby, and again they haven't disgraced themselves. We'll say that.
Well, Alan, I want to bring to you here to maybe talk about some of these dirt pedigrees, because I know that you have a lot of American influence now with these JRA horses. And both of them certainly have pedigrees that will be familiar, I would think, to the American racing fan.
Yeah, for sure. Luxor Cafe is the full brother to the two-time February Stakes winner Cafe Pharoah, who also took his show on the road and performed admirably in Saudi in particular. So he's by American Pharoah out of the more than ready mare Mary's Follies, who was all turf. And you see, it's just funny how pedigree works sometimes. American Pharoah over more than ready can get you a Cafe Pharoah, can get you a Luxor Cafe, and also gets you a four-wheel drive who stands in Japan and won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. So you kind of never know what's going to, pop out of the oven when you put these sires and mares together. So there's Luxor Cafe. I think he's the more. Well, I say he's the more likely. Then you have Admire Daytona by Drefong, a champion sprinter, but by Gio Ponte, who loved every bit of 10 furlongs. As my friend Andrew Hawkins pointed out, almost sired a Melbourne Cup winner over 3,200 meters or 2 miles. And he's out of a Shackleford mare, so you've got classic winning form on the bottom. And if you dig deeper into the pedigree, you've got a mare like Sky Beauty in the third dam. So that's all 10 furlong form down deep in that pedigree. So he's more intriguing and more sneaky from a pedigree standpoint. But I think on paper anyways, and given the way that they've run, I think both are likely to stay the 10.
Yeah, Alan, and I want to keep it with you here. Just it's interesting that the American Pharoah shows up here to get a Derby horse going the JRA route. Kind of crazy, like you said. Pedigree is a funny thing.
That's a funny thing. Even more interesting is the fact that Koichi Nishikawa also campaigned Cafe Pharoah. So, and he's acquired Luxor Cafe privately somehow. I don't know how that deal came together, but he acquired him. Obviously, liked Cafe Pharoah so much that he went back to the well one more time. So, listen, the Japanese horses, whenever they travel, wherever they travel, are to be taken seriously. That's no secret anymore. Wherever they show up, even after a down year in 2023, they've reemerged and been powerful in places like Saudi and Dubai. And there's no reason that they can't continue to make their presence felt here on our Triple Crown Trail.
Toshi, I want to go back to you as far as connections, because I know in your open you mentioned João Moreira, certainly one of the top jockeys on planet Earth. But talk a little more about the trainers for both horses, these connections coming over here, as far as how they rate. I mean, we all as American race fans can look at the program and say that Bob Baffert and Mike McCarthy are all top world-class trainers. But for me, even though I do follow the circuit, it's nice to get, some perspective on the connections for these two horses. So maybe you can get into that a little bit.
I mean, the trainer for the Luxor Cafe, the Noriyuki Hori, he, as I mentioned, he's one of the top in Japan, and he's very, close to horses as well. When I go to Hong Kong, I often see him, him walking alongside of his horse to, school the parade ring, etc. He's a lovely guy, and he trained the winner in Australia as well. Real impact on the George Ryder Stakes. It was 2015, if I remember well, and he had a winner in Hong Kong as well. Also, he had a winner of the Japanese Derby twice, Duramente and Tastiera, as far as I remember. So, he's definitely the top class trainer in Japan and proven at world stages. And Mr. Kato, he's a very good trainer in Japan on dirt circuit as well. And his talent proved at Dubai this year with Admire Daytona, and his Admire Daytona is such a tenacious horse. So it will be very interesting to see. Even though this is a first time for João Moreira to ride at Churchill Downs or maybe Kentucky Derby, I mean it'll be so interesting to see how the Japanese form will be transferred this year based on last year's performance or last couple years' performance. Yeah, people expect a lot for Luxor Café, I'd say.
Absolutely. And Klaus, these two horses obviously have a few races in common. So talk about some of the prep races that have gone on that have led these horses to this spot, and where you think that they stack up on a class standpoint for the American runners here. And as far as I know that they're capable at the distance, but are they capable to class up with a journalism with these American dirt monsters?
Well, I think it's a bit of a hard read just because of, you can use, I think, the UAE Derby is really the form reference point where you can look at that as kind of where these horses sort of fit within the, realm of competitiveness. And I say that just because Admire Daytona faced off against Luxor Café numerous times in Japan. Again, they ran close the few times they did meet. So, if you look back at for instance, the Hyacinth stake where, Luxor Café, he beat Admire Daytona by quite a bit, but then, Admire Daytona came back after that race and won the UAE Derby. So again, in terms of form references, whenever they face each other, Luxor Café has always had the best of Admire Daytona, but again, they've battled it out with each other. So in terms of those two going head to head, yes, you'd say in the current form cycle, you would think that Luxor Café is the better of the two. But again, Admire Daytona did nothing wrong in terms of winning the UAE Derby. So, I think that's the bigger question, is kind of saying how quality they are, and I think all of us can also agree with the fact that, Luxor Café, yes, he won his last race pretty impressively going away. But I think the question is really got to be is who the heck did he beat in behind him? Because all those horses just, I'm not calling them tomato cans, but they weren't that great in terms of the horses that he beat in his last start.
Well, last year, Klaus, I want to stick with you here just a little bit, because when Forever Young came in, that appeared to be a very quick, rendition of that UAE Derby, and he did come in off the win at Saudi. Also, I know a lot. I mean, he was very well fancied last year. It doesn't seem that the buzz or the opinion of the UAE Derby this year is quite the same as it was last year.
I just think the fact that if you look at that race in the UAE Derby, I think we can all agree it wasn't that impressive. I think we were looking at Admire Daytona thinking, okay, yeah. At one point, I even thought that Don and the Moon was going to win the race, but then his pedigree kicked in and he wanted no part of a mile and 3/16. And then I thought the Osborne horse was going to go past both of them. He didn't kick in either. So, the stamina and training came into Admire Daytona and he held on for the win. Again, I don't think it was the most, brilliant rendition of the UAE Derby. I think it was okay. So there wasn't that buzz about Admire Daytona, other than the fact he's Japanese, which obviously adds some intrigue to him and how good he really is. And then for Luxor Café, as yes, you have the American pedigree for Luxor Café being by American Pharoah out of again More Than Ready Mare, and also the fact he blitzed the field in his last, but it's just like a lot of questions we have is that when horses leave Japan, there's still a lot of question marks in terms of how good is this horse really, and who was he actually beating in his races in Japan. So,
well, Alex, I want to bring it back to you here because I know that you're highly tied into the Netkeiba speed figures. So everybody wants to know, especially, you know, how the speed figures from over there stack up to maybe some of the figures that we use over here to rate these horses and to kind of, you know, make decisions on how fast are they, how willing will they be able to, you know, maybe go the distance at a certain speed. So talk about both horses and maybe give some ideas of the speed figures in some of these prep events.
Yeah, absolutely. So comparing the two horses, of course, Luxor Cafe has a much better body of evidence and speed figures according to Netkeiba. And again, Netkeiba speed figures are a premium feature. So if you can figure out the Japanese, it's not super hard with Google Translate to kind of use an American credit card to pay for the site. You too can access these figures, but happy to do so for the greater good of the handicappers watching the video. But yeah, his top Netkeiba speed figure is 107. So this was earned on a track. This was earned in the Hyacinth Stakes. So Admire Daytona was in that race where he finished fourth. And Luxor Cafe just looked ultra impressive. Had to swing wide. I know Admire Daytona was wider. The filly who finished second was, I think, even wider than that, but still, like, I believe he was in like the 5 path, still had to, you know, power home to get that done. And as far as the track bias, so new thing I'm kind of bringing into our analysis this year is trying to understand Netkeiba's track bias. It's a number that goes from -20 to, I believe, +20. And a -20 means that it's a fast racetrack, and typically horses that run. So for example, two races before that, Luxor Cafe won easily on a -20 rated track, but he only earned a 98 time index for that effort. In contrast, the track was a +4 on the Hyacinth Stakes Day, and that's where he earned that 107. So showing is more tiring track and a little bit more difficult for a horse of this style to win on. So that was ultra impressive. He then followed that up in the the translation is bad on my part. I have to go to the US figures. The Fukuryu Stakes. It says Hidden Dragon Stakes, so I'm not sure, Toshi, if Fukuryu means Hidden Dragon. I don't know enough Japanese to quite parse that out, but he earned a 103 in that race. Again, that's Nakayama. That was a rainy track. I think the track was listed as good, but it had seen moisture that day. And that's about 9 furlongs, so 1,800 meters. And, you know, follow that up. Again, the slight regression probably coming from the track bias that day being a negative, track number being a -11. So kind of favoring him a little bit more. So that's probably explains the regression in the time index from Netkeiba. But he's running figures right up there with Forever Young. That Forever Young ran last year. We have a little bit less information on Forever Young since he only ran 3 starts on tracks that Netkeiba does speed figures for. They don't provide any figures for the Saudi tracks or Dubai. So we kind of have a little less to go on. But the last recorded fig I have for Forever Young before the Saudi Derby was as a 2-year-old at Kawasaki racetrack in the 2-year-old championship on dirt. He ran a 103. So Luxor Cafe is right there as a 3-year-old, expecting, you know, some progression there. As far as Admire Daytona, he's a little bit, I wouldn't say a cut below. That's not fair. His highest fig was a 102, earned finishing 4th to Luxor Cafe in that Hyacinth Stakes on February 23rd. So, I mean, that's still very good and in line with what we expect. But his highest winning figure was in his maiden race with Christophe Lemaire aboard back in February. He earned an 89. And the track bias that day, according to Netkeiba, was a +3. So that's not all that great, to be honest. Came home in that maiden race in 37.5 seconds. So that's, you know, a lot slower than even what he ran in the Hyacinth Stakes. So he, of course, is liable to improve from there. But I will say one thing I really like about this horse, even though he will be double digits, is he always seems to try really hard. He's always right there in the mix. Didn't love how he kind of lets himself get past a little bit, but even if he gets past, he still kind of stays in it and hangs around. So wouldn't completely count him out, but Luxor Cafe definitely has the edge on figs.
Well, Admire Daytona, at least, you know, he's proven that he could ship and go to a new environment and come up with a win. So that's something that certainly is in his favor. Toshi, are you tied into some of these speed figures also? What's your take here on maybe I can't say equilibration, but if you're familiar with the buyer figures here, that's, a 100 buyer here would be, a top figure. Journalism had a 107 buyer to win, one of his prep races. Do you think that the Japanese horses can match and maybe approach that sort of level on the buyer scale?
Doesn't transfer straight into buyer figure. I don't think. For example, the Grand Alegre, daughter of Deep Impact, we be fastest daughter of the Deep Impact. She got like 122, the highest, and her debut 96 was apparently one of the highest. 2 years old, raced in June, and 104 as 3 years old is highest as well. So, it's a good indication. And I actually work for Netkeiba as well. And I know as a fact, this, measuring procedure is quite consistent, and they looked all races, and they consider the track bias as well, and as well as track condition. So it is actually good for you to have to measure quality of the race in Japan and the quality of the field of that race. But again, it would be very interesting to see how this figure would be transferred. But like I would be wondering how much Foebiang could have got in Japan, but as you know, he only raced once in JRA circuit, so it's very difficult to say.
Absolutely. Well, Alan, we haven't really got your take on the horses themselves. You talked a little Pedigree. I know you've watched these prep races. What's your perception of how they look visually? How they've conducted themselves in these races. How do you think they stack up horse-wise and class-wise?
So I can tell you from like my personal approach to the Derby, I'm always in search of the horse that can give you that sort of Derby winning boost 3 furlongs from home. And for me, every time I've watched Luxor Cafe, he's finished. In fact, his last 5 races, he's clocked the fastest final 600, 35 and 3. I think he went last time, or maybe the hyacinth or something like that. So the things I like about him is he settles. He's not necessarily pace dependent. He's going to settle forward, but not too close to the pace. And if his previous races are any indication, he's going to kick when he's asked to go. And if the pace is as blinding in the Derby as it appears that it might be, I think he's got a good shot to pick up some of the pieces, maybe a little bit more if it all came together. Here's an interesting tidbit, and I'm not sure I know what to make of it. So he's run 6 races in his career. 4 of them have been right-handed at Sapporo and Nakayama. The 2 left-handed races he's gone are both over the Tokyo Mile, where he beat Admire Daytona Nose to win his maiden, and won the Hyacinth. Arguably lucky that the filly didn't get him. Another few strides and she was the winner. So I think the additional 2 furlongs, I think that works in his favor. I think they're going to go hard ahead of him. I think Joe is the right guy. He's got such good hands, and he's going to have him in the right spot. So listen, and you look at the horses. Damian Lane has ridden this horse. Rachel King rode him in the Hyacinth. Now Joe's got them out. Ryan Moore rode him to break his maiden. So like they've always had high hopes and opinions of him. I think he's got an A+ chance to run a big race. If there's a knock, he's probably a candidate to be overbet. Admire Daytona, he blew the brake in the Hyacinth, and I think that cost him dearly that day. He's not the same horse that Luxor Cafe is, but he showed a fair bit of grit. I don't think he wants any part of the lead. Christophe found himself on the engine at Meydan. you've been there, done that with Derma Sotogake and with Crown Pride, and just sort of capitalized on what they handed him. But I think Admire Daytona is going to be better, and he showed he can make runs from off the pace in his previous races. So I don't think unless Christophe pulls another Crown Pride, which I hope he doesn't, Admire Daytona should be midfield somewhere, just ahead or behind midfield.
Do you think that, I mean, we've seen this before, if they do get a sharp break, I mean, there's enough speed in this Derby already. This pace could be supersonic if he pulls a similar sort of ride here. Would that benefit the other horse?
Well, I think yes. I mean, I would be pretty shocked if Admire Daytona had the early foot to beat the likes of Rodriguez and Citizen Bull to the front in this race. I don't see that happening.
Okay, so we've given you speed, we've given you some pedigree, we've given you some form lines. Let's give some opinions now. And Alex, we'll come back to you. What are the chances for either of these horses in this Kentucky Derby? Are they here just to kind of, get around there, maybe pick up a check, or do either have a chance to win, maybe crack the try? What's your thoughts?
Man, I'll tell you, I'm here to avenge my boy, Forever Young. He's still my phone background. Justice for Forever Young. I would love either horse to win. I'm a realist, so Luxor Cafe seems to be the one with the clear edge, as everyone has pretty much stated here. Pedigree-wise, impeccable. Even has plenty of stamina on his dam side. Going back to his grand dam, is it Matryoshka, I believe, the dam of Catch the Queen. So we have a lot of Wave to the Queen, excuse me. We have a lot of excellent stamina going through the dams line as well. And I don't need to speak about American Pharoah. We all know who that superstar is. And I've just heard amazing things as well. One thing that's awesome about Netkeba is there's like a fan discussion board, and I love popping on there and seeing people post excerpts from Japanese news outlets of what the trainer is saying. So apparently, or assistant trainer in this case. So assistant trainer said he was, after stepping off the van in Kentucky to go in his barn, he was calmer than expected. He's very adaptable, and he's eating well. So that's all positive signs for Luxor Cafe. I can't wait to see what he can do.
And the other horse, do you think that Admire Daytona, does he rate a chance? What's your thoughts there?
I never say never. Hey, we had a rich strike, right? We had a Mystic Dan last year sneak up the rail. I would never count him out. I just, Drefong to me, this is why the pedigree I mentioned at the beginning of the video that was sus for me, is because Drefong cost me one of the greatest losses of my handicapping career when he was racing, when he just took a turn out of the gate and just wiped out like half the field and didn't get DQ'd for it. I was never recovered from that. So that's why I just give the side eye to Admire Daytona. But I mean, he's still a wonderful horse, deserving winner of the UAE Derby. They're going to be on my tickets. I'm going to do Japan exactas both ways for sure. So he's definitely not just here because, of the UAE birth. He's here because the connections truly believe he can win.
Well, if that should happen, you would certainly get paid. Klaus, are you firing the Japanese exacta as for sanity purposes, or what are you thinking?
If I do the Japanese exacta, it's more just in case they finish 1-2 and I don't get burned for it. But for me, it's more just I see a lot of, unfortunately, like negatives this year for the Japanese contingent. To Alex's point, yeah, I was if I had more than 2 fists, that would have been more than 2 fists on Forever Young last year. That's how confident I was in terms of him winning. And I'm not saying I don't have confidence in the two of them. It's just there's a lot of question marks that I have to ask. And one I wanted to ask, and maybe Toshi knows or someone knows in terms of what happened with Luxor Cafe, but Toshi, do you know why they shipped so close to the race? Because that for me was more of for Luxor Cafe shipping like less than a week out from the race in terms of where they are. Was that planned by Hori in terms of what they want to do with him, or was that just the plan all along.
I mean, I was wondering that as well, but I don't know, what the connection is, what he's actually thinking, or, I haven't interviewed, etc. So, but they try quite few things, different ways of approaching, and Japanese horses are successful at the international stages, Saudi Arabia and Dubai and Hong Kong and even Australia. They send horses like this, 10 days or 2 weeks, or even a week before the racing, the latest stages. And even the JRA circuit, there's a mandatory rule deployed that you must get into JRA's facility within 10 days before the racing for the, anti-doping protocol mainly, and, there's health and safety as well. So they got used to that, moving into the 10 to 2 weeks before the racing, and I think this is the way they are playing. I wonder how this will work this year, but I believe I kind of believe and trust Hori and how they train. So I hope he knows something differently, and this is the way it works for him.
Yeah, and that was more my question, because Hori has sent out a bunch of really good horses internationally. So and even the trainer of Admire Daytona, if you look way back, he had a horse called Shadowgate that actually won in Singapore. So he knows how to ship horses as well. But I just was, I have to dig deep with that one, Al. But
hard yards there, man.
But at the end of the day, it was more just a question, because it's just, we've seen all the Japanese horses ship much earlier than we have in the past. Obviously, which Hagi did, and as well as the Admire Daytona crew sent their horse early too. So I was just kind of wondering about that. But sorry, Mike, to get a long-winded answer for out of here. But I just I think there's lots of question marks for me, but I certainly have them both my tickets. So.
Alan, Luxor Cafe, a couple 9 furlong wins. I do think he's visually impressive. If you watch those races, you using, fading? What's your thoughts?
My biggest issue is that I think so highly of journalism and sovereignty. Like, I'm willing to swallow a skinny price on journalism. He's, to me, what Street Sense was back in 2007. He, to me, is a bettable favorite. So I have such a high opinion of him and sovereignty, and I have a difficult time making the case that Luxor Cafe can actually beat both of them. I think he could run home for third or fourth or something like that. I think he's pretty good. I don't know that a horse has won 2 legs of the Japan Road to the Kentucky Derby and come over here. I think Master Fencer won the Fukuryu and came over off the strength of the 40 points there. So it seems to me this has been the plan for him ever since he won his maiden. They were going to focus on the Hyacinth. They were going to compete in the final leg and hope that everything came together. And I think it's been a well thought out plan for a horse who should eat up the 10 furlongs. Seems to me to have the right running style. I think he's live, albeit at a bad tasting mutual. How about that?
So you're thinking underlaid then. What do you think he closes? You think he's sub 10 to 1?
I think he could be in the 8 to 10 to 1 range.
Okay. Toshi, you going to take 10 to 1 on Luxor Cafe? You have any love for Admire Daytona? Give us your thoughts on the race.
Well, I always respect American horses, to be honest. And, Japan gaining great results recently on dart circuit around the world, in Dubai, Saudi, and including America. But those horses are special, I believe. Is Luxor Cafe special? He can be, absolutely, he can be. But, as you can see, Foebian only got beaten by American horses. So they are different, and locals, I always respect locals, even America or Hong Kong, Europe, Australia. It's tough to beat locals, and particularly those classic races. First leg of the icon of the Triple Crown, let's say. So 10-1, yeah, I mean, I would do that to enjoy my beer on that night, possibly, but I wouldn't put my whole salary into it. That's the way to say.
All right, so we'll go real quick. I know Alan says he believes in journalism. Alex, let's get. I know it's early. We still got to draw. Give us a Derby pick, and we'll jump out of here.
Journalism. He's currently sitting at 3-1. So yuck. But I definitely journalism. Luxor Cafe. I'm hitting the exacta button 20 times.
Klaus, Derby pick, or you got to wait to see how they draw?
No, I already have one. I'm actually going to go with Rodriguez. Bob Baffert comes back to win the day.
Coach, I know you like the locals, so who are we going with for this year's Derby?
So far for me, journalism, yeah.
Well, this has been, I think, a fantastic look at the Japanese contenders for the Kentucky Derby. We thank Twin Spires and their tournaments for sponsoring this show. Please go to twinspires.com, click on the tournament tab, get in that Kentucky Derby betting challenge, the new major this year on the tournament circuit. So thanks to them for sponsoring this. We thank everybody here that's definitely highly involved with the JRA. Get in on the JRA on the weekends. We do a lot of segments on inthemoneypodcast.com, and we certainly pump up those races. Lots of big payouts to be had. If you check out Alex and Klaus on Twitter, check out the website. Everybody and Alan, everybody is involved in JRA. It certainly gives out a lot of information online. So go and get involved in JRA, get in some big payouts. Enjoy this year's Kentucky Derby. We'll see you all next time.